we'll take questions at the end of the program and so forth.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And if you can't figure out how to mute yourself, you just need to stop talking. That's another way to do it. Okay.
Where are you?
Hey, I'd like to thank everybody for showing up last month at Presidio Park for our tour of the Presidio with Richard Carrico. It was a lot of fun, and we had a big turnout, and it was really a lovely afternoon, and everybody had a lot of fun. So if you came out, thank you very much, and you missed it if you didn't. And then next month, why is that not working? Oh, there we go. That was interesting. Okay, next month on September 16th, so it'll be on a Thursday night again. Our lecture will be Nancy Carroll Carter talking about the lost and found Balboa Park Gardens of Kate Sessions. And we're having Nancy back with us. This should be a wonderful program. And as of right now, I don't know if we'll be live or we'll be back on Zoom, but I'll be talking to Pastor Jessica in the next week. And she is in the room this evening. Thanks, Jessica. And but we'll get that figured out, and we'll get you that information. But we'd like to thank Water's Edge Church for continuing to host Ocean Beach Historical Society.
Yes.
And why isn't this? Okay, I'm happy to push a different button to advance the slide. Hey, if you're not already a member of OB Historical Society, we encourage you to join us. They did a study and they found out it's the best thing you can do with $15. Go to our website, obhistory.org, and that's the way you can keep track of everything we're doing also. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel, we urge you to do that also. Just go to YouTube and look for Ocean Beach Historical Society. There's a lot of stuff up there now, so don't be shy, give that a try. And I would like to give a shout out to San Diego Vintage Postcards. If you're into the whole old postcard thing, take a look at this page. My friend Pernell Thistledew, who is in the room this evening, put this together and contacted me and asked me to be a moderator because of my moderate temperament, he said. So no, this is a guy who turns out I didn't know him before. I've talked to him on the phone a couple times. He has a great bunch of postcards, interesting guy. Turns out he grew up on my block about a decade before I did. And also was one of my predecessors on the staff of the high school yearbook. Isn't that interesting? So anyway, check out San Diego Vintage Postcards. I only swiped one card off of this page, I promise, for this program, and I'll point that out when we come to it. And I would also like to call your attention to the Rosemary Ann Phelan photo collection, which we are hosting on OB Historical Society's YouTube channel. This is a collection of over 9,000 images of San Diego before 1950, put together by our friend Jim Phelan, and he has curated these into slideshows set to music, and they're categorized and they're really lovely. And I have so far put about 15 of them on the YouTube channel, which means I only have 50 more to go. So check that out. So check Phelan collection out on OB Historical YouTube channel. And I only stole one image from Jim for this program. Okay, so are you ready, Jonnie?
I'm ready.
All right. Okay. I take the full blame for this title, Postcards from the Past, Part 1, with Jonnie and Eric.
Woo. Okay, pay attention to this card because it's unusual, and I'll explain a little bit later. I'm going to read it. San Diego, California, 12/17/05. Dear Adolf, the above city is supposed to have the finest climate in the world. In winter, it is warm enough to bathe in the ocean. And he was sending this to New York. So you can imagine what a change it would be in San Diego. You can move on, Eric. I'll tell about it in a minute. Hello? Oh, there you are. Okay, this is kind of a pretty popular view of OB. We have several slides that are similar to this one, but part of the fun of postcards is being a detective. And if you take a look in the background, you can kind of date this postcard because I don't see any Wonderland back there anywhere. We know Wonderland, the first amusement park in San Diego, came in 1913. So that means this is before 1913. And I'm going to read you what it says on the back. It says, "Dearest Mother, this is a picture of the beach, but it's not half as pretty as it really is. This is where we got the shells, and it's so pretty to see the waves come in." Now, before we move into some more postcards, I want to tell you a little bit about postcards and postcard collecting, a little history. And first of all, before I do that, I want to thank Eric because I know he put in a lot more hours into this than I did. He came home from his nice vacation and spent lots of hours sorting and categorizing and scanning and all that. And I appreciate all your hard work, Eric. So thank you. First off, I want to tell you that Eric and I are what are called deltiologists. That's a fancy word for postcard collectors. It has nothing to do with the Delta variant, however. Deltiology is the third most popular hobby in America right now, after coin and stamp collecting. So I wanted to talk about what's called the golden age of postcards, which kind of runs from 1907 to 1915. And you're going to see a lot of them in this show that are in that golden era. The reason it became really popular in 1907 was prior to that year, postcards were just used by businesses to send out little advertising. You had to put the address on one side and your picture or message on the other. No mixing the two. Well, in 1907, they decided that you could split the one side and have a message and an address. That meant you had the whole other side for an image. And this set everybody into a wild commotion about different destination cards and theme cards and holiday cards. In fact, I'm sure if you do any family history, you've seen a postcard with one of your great aunts on it or some family member and wondered how in the heck did they get on a postcard? Well, you'll find out because it was just like texting, sending cards. They had mail deliveries more than once a day, if you can imagine that. And people just sent them like crazy. And in San Diego, particularly in 1913 to 1915, there were thousands of postcards because that was in the buildup to the expo. And so you're going to see, it wasn't just the park that they were publicizing. They were throwing everything in there that tourists might want to go see elsewhere. Like, for instance, Eric's going to talk about Loma Land. And that was a great side trip to go out to Loma Land if you came to San Diego for the expo. I guess I'll end with saying that I started collecting about 30 years ago. I started with Balboa Park. I got fascinated with the buildings. Then I moved on to Ocean Beach. I gave a lot of my photos to Ocean Beach Historical Society that were of the beach area in Point Loma. I gave a lot of other ones to my daughter who works at the University Heights Library for a local collection there. Then I gave some to the San Diego State Special Collections out there. So I still have tons of them. And I'm sure, like you noticed, this is part one. We might expose you to part two sometime in the near future, or maybe the far future. Anyway, I am going to have Eric run through a few sample slides before we get into the major categories. Definitely the golden era. That's a little later. That one's more in the 20s, 27.
Kitty wants this one for a cover photo, Jonnie.
It is cute. It looks like it's from Coronado looking back towards Point Loma.
Those are the early days, not much going on there.
There's Neighbor City to Panama. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
How would you like to do the border crossing like this?
Isn't that lovely? Hey, for Whitey Weedle, that's a cash hour card, Whitey.
Oh, there's one of those plaza
Yeah,
fountain.
that's a nice one. And
Very fine screen. We're stuck.
all right, Johnny.
And there we are. Okay, I'm going to read the back of this card and then we'll move forward again into OB. Dear Mrs. Bennett, this is where you would enjoy a vacation and get the sea breeze. The weather is delightful and sunshine all the time. I envy the outdoor life and do not long for snow. And if you notice, this was going to Grand Fork, North Dakota, excuse me. And
Yeah.
I'm sure in January, when this card was posted, January 9th, I'm sure it was pretty cold in Grand Fork. So Eric, you're on for a bit.
All right. All right. Thank you, Johnny. So every picture tells a story, don't it? A postcard, particularly a picture postcard, captures a moment in time. And frequently, surprisingly frequently, a postcard might be the best, or in some cases, the only photographic record of a particular place and or time. And many of the cards we'll show you tonight fit that description. Some parts of the country or the world, there might be one postcard of the area, if that, and it's of the Howard Johnsons or the National Guard Armory or something like that. Here we have a particularly rich trove of postcard material. And before I forget, this is Johnny's idea. If you want to play along at home, keep track of your favorite images from this show. We're going to run through about 200 postcards, believe it or not. And keep track of your favorite 3 or 5 or whatever you want, and then send them in to us, and we're going to try to reproduce them. Okay. Anyway, so there was so much material that we had to leave a lot of stuff out, which is one reason that I call this part 1. But we've tried to arrange the program into several categories, and I forgot to advance the slides here. I'm trying to, walk and chew gum here.
This is a moment in history, the Del Mar Turf Club.
Yeah. Okay. So our categories include Ocean Beach. Thank you, Ray Blavitt, for this image. Point Loma, and we're talking about the lighthouses and Fort Rosecrans. We have a lot of cards from Loma Land. We have cards from Wonderland. We have a lot of cards from Sunset Cliffs, and we're also going to talk about these real photo cards. We have a lot of beautiful cards from Balboa Park, and we're going to talk about these lovely hand-tinted cards. We have some kinky cards. No, I mean, we have some quirky and funny cards, and we even have some zoo cards, and we have a surprise for you. No, we don't really have a surprise, but we have an extended anecdote, an illustrated anecdote that may pertain to the subject matter, we think. And I loosely translated, this means postcards, tend to help friendships. It means something like that. My French is not that great. All right. Hey, folks, my co-host this evening, Jonnie Wilson, is a well-known local writer and historian. She didn't want me to read all this, but I told her it was shorter than the other one. And she's a founding member of Ocean Beach Historical Society and was the lead writer and editor of our book, Ocean Beach, published in 2014. In 2012, Jonnie won the Local History Award given by the San Diego Historical Resources Board for her book, A Bright Light on a Dark Street. Jonnie is a member of the board of the Congress of History of San Diego and Imperial Counties. She's a member of SOHO and the San Diego History Center. And Jonnie's latest book is Garment for a Long Journey, the collected poems of Laverne Brown, the celebrated local poet who just happened to be Jonnie's mom. And probably most significantly, Jonnie is a serious postcard collector and has donated hundreds of postcards to the collection of Ocean Beach Historical Society. And now, here's
Jonnie. Okay, we're starting here with the Benbow building. This is not, it was built in 1914, but obviously this was taken much later. It was built right down on the water where where the parking lot is now. And it was a huge dance hall on the bottom floor and a bathhouse on the top floor. It was there until 1941, and we'll see it again later. So
I
moving
like
right
that they advertised Kodak film right on the front of the building.
Yep. Dancing every night. There's another shot, and you can see now that the roller coaster is way back there in Wonderland and some other buildings. So we know now that the fish shop here, where it says, "I know how to cook fish," which has been taken over by a new manager who knows how to advertise, that this one is in 1913, I believe we dated it, because we know it's after that, at least that date, because of Wonderland. And I think maybe Eric said, "Oh, it's right down there in the corner. I see it now." Copyright 1913. Okay, moving to the next one, please. This is Newport Avenue. And here again, you can play detective and look at the stores. The Ben Franklin store was like a 5 and 10 cent store before we had Cornet. And I know this is before 1949, or at least 49, because the fire station, which was on Newport, moved that year up to Evers and Voltaire. So that's that. Now we have a dirigible flying over the Sunset Cliffs that I don't know why. Do you know why, Eric?
No, but I love this postcard.
Kind of funny. Eric's going to talk a lot about strange objects in the sky and things get planted a little later.
UFO.
Photo finishing was on Bacon. Bacon was the next main commercial street next to Newport. They had a lot of shops along here. And he was the man you went to if you had a camera and film. He also had the Western Union office there. So the important man in the neighborhood. This is probably one of those that was prior to 1907, because I have a feeling the other side was an address to somebody that was a potential client. So you have all the information. Ralston Realty was one of DC Collier's companies, and he founded it in 1904. So it probably was not too long after that this was published. There is DC Collier's shack, which was up on the cliff. And I never remember what street it was on the end of. What is it, Eric?
At the bottom of Coronado.
Okay, Coronado. And it was called a shack because he built it as a young man when they came in 1884, I think. And he bought one of the original lots from Carlson and Higgins. And he, as a young man, built a cottage and eventually expanded it to be a huge house. But he always called it a shack. And it had a swimming pool. And it was there quite a while into the 60s. This is a caloric block. It's all candy and ice cream. So I know Eric has things to say about this, but I want to point out that the Sholey brothers on the right, their best candy bar was called the Cluster Ruffs. They were a downtown company. They manufactured candy down here in San Diego, but because of the tourists out in OB, I'm sure they opened a second shop to catch some more trade down there. Eric, you want to tell about the Sholey building?
Yeah, well, no, they just they saved the Sholey Candy Company building, brick building downtown in the gas lamp when they put in Petco Park. And so they moved it to a different position on that block. I forget now exactly how, but I think it was on K Street maybe. Anyway, they moved it so it's within the ballpark district, and it's there out in center field. So you can see it. It's a historic building, but it's the Sholey Candy Company. I just wanted to tell folks right now, this is the barbecue house is in this place, and next door, the 2-story building is South Coast right now.
There you go. All right. This is Ocean Village Resort, which was built in 1928. It was built on the foundations of Wonderland, which had several very, very large buildings that were built on pilings that went way down into bedrock. So it was very stable area built on the, it looks like it'd be very fragile being on the sand, but it was there for quite some time. It was there until, I don't know, at least the 60s, wouldn't you say, Eric? Anyway, it was a fancy place, believe it or not, when it was built. But later, when I was working as a young woman for the police department, I know it was kind of run down, and there were a lot of people out there that were getting served warrants for unpaid tickets.
Yeah, it was gone by the early 60s. So I
Okay.
don't know when they tore
Here
it.
we have Silver Spray, which was built in 1919, but as you can see by the missing plunge building, it had the largest ocean plunge at one time in Southern California, but that's all gone, and you see that empty spot there by the seawall. So this would have been after 1947. It's kind of a funny little drawing anyway. It's not a real photo.
No.
Okay. Police station, hey, down on the beach. Lifeguards and police right together there. This is probably in the 40s. Crawfish Cove was down at the corner, at the end of Santa Cruz, and you can tell how they went to the beach. Long skirts and suits and ties, and poked around the tide pools and
Yep.
put their feet in the water, I guess. This is one of the golden age ones, definitely. Here we have 1926. The building's been around for 12 years, and it keeps getting flooded every time there's a high tide. So those downstairs, there were other businesses besides the dance hall down there getting regularly flooded. In fact, I think it was torn down in 41 when they had another major storm. Okay. Soapbox Derby. Well, because we have so many nice hills, we have some of the preliminary races out in Ocean Beach. This is one that was given by Bonnie Jean Photos. Eric knows more about her than I do. But anyway, 1947, and look at the side of that one car says Homer's Variety Store, which was one of our two big 5 and 10 cent stores when I was growing up. Probably when a lot of other people were growing up too.
Yeah.
Here's the second building of the Ocean Beach Elementary. The first one was built in 1909. This one was built in 1935 when it had to be built to earthquake standards. And of course, it's still there. And Eric and I like this way this is arranged with the palm frond around it. Pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I like this one very much. And both of these last two are genuine Bonnie Jean real photo cards from Ocean Beach, California.
Oh, that way it cost $40,000 for that new school. Here we have Ocean Beach as a small self-contained community with one of everything. You didn't have to really go far because you had drugstore, market, cafes, everything you needed. Just one of the many shots we have of Newport. There's another one. This is more like in the 60s. Does anybody know if that's a Hudson on the left there, that old car? I swear it is. I knew somebody.
Johnny's boyfriend used to drive this Hudson over here.
Anyway, this is the
Rocky.
50s.
What she told me.
And here's another one showing a little bit farther down street, Cornet, where I spent a lot of time. It's a great store. And another view.
Remember
There's
Kim's
Vita-
shoes there? Vita Moss.
Yep.
There's a nice Rambler Ambassador. How do you like the fins on that wagon? All right.
And this is one of my favorites because this is when I was growing up that they had the white wood painted boardwalk. And it went right down to where the pier was now. But by the time it got down there, there's usually quite a drop to the beach. And we used to go under there. And I remember when actually we caught grunion. Did you catch grunion?
Oh, yeah.
Eric?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was only good for catching one at a time. I had a friend who could catch handfuls at a time.
And here's a view after the pier went in 66. So looking north. Okay. And of course, surfing dogs. How could we go without a postcard of surfing dogs?
That's Rocky the surfing dog.
There you go. Now Karen's probably turning the old Spanish lighthouse. You're going to see that on all of these cards. We all know it's a point on the lighthouse. It wasn't Spanish at all, but anyway, that's the way it is. Back in the day, sounded more romantic, I guess. This was built in 54, 55. Oh, and here's the lower lighthouse because they figured out eventually that upper one wasn't doing a whole lot of good. They had to be closer to the water, so they built this one in the 1890s. And that's one that Karen can talk for hours about. She can talk for hours about both of them, I'm sure.
Good picture.
Here's another view. So And another view
Whoa.
for the Coronado Islands. And here we have the most southwesterly point in the United States, at least the continental United States, on Point Loma. I like this aerial view. This is probably more like the 20s. They started doing more aerials. Shows you the main road in and the lower lighthouse.
It's a nice linen finish card, which you can see even on this scan. And Johnny will tell you that these aerials were kind of uncommon in these older postcards.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Starting to come in there. Now Eric tells me this is facing north, so I guess you're going back home after a day at the lighthouse. But that's, as you know, one road in, one road out. Another one of the old Spanish lighthouse. And it has the Cabrillo monument. Now that was the plaque. That was given in 1935 by the ambassador from Portugal to the US. And I know there's still lots of controversy about, you know, whether Cabrillo was Portuguese or not, but I think we'll just let it go. Oh, this one, I swear to Eric, this was Photoshop. They were Photoshopping back in those days. I just don't think this view was possible at the White House. And these two people out there, come on. But Eric likes it. It's very romantic.
Yeah, I like it. Purnell and I think this is a Lee Passmore photo. There's various reasons I think that.
Okay. He did a lot of stuff. There's one of Fort Rosecrans down Fells Point. Yeah. Yep, Lee Passmore. Okay, now we're showing the coaling station and quarantine station. I guess if you came in and were sick, you had to be quarantined because back in the day, there were a lot of illnesses we didn't have medicines or vaccines for.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the wireless telegraph station on Point Loma. Now this is where they got the first signal from Pearl Harbor that was transmitted to the US, picked it up and sent it to Choice View, and from there it went all over.
Yeah, among many other wireless firsts up here.
Yep, indeed. Here are some gun batteries. It calls this a disappearing rifle, but looks pretty darn big to me. But I guess this is copyrighted 1910, so they were pretty well armed before World War I.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. The Bennington Monument. Now that one was put up to honor the men in 1905 that were killed in the explosion of the gunboat. And Karen has a whole nother, program on that one too. But I don't know, did you get the thing I sent you, Karen, about this was built out of Santee granite?
Yes, a curious thought.
It was supposed to be the best granite, even better than Vermont. So this was built of local granite. I think it's like 70 feet tall. It's still there.
66, a foot. It's 66, a foot for every sailor who died.
Okay, must be that little cap that extends it. All right, this is showing you some of the hand tinted stuff. All these ones that show up in color, we had no color film, of course. So these were all hand tinted, and some of them get pretty garish, and Eric's got some great examples of how bad they can get. That one's kind of bad, but it gets worse. It gets worse, and I think we're about to switch over. Take it away.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit about Loma Land, the Theosophical Society's Institute on the top of Point Loma. I love this shot of these kids on the beach. Okay. There's a postcard of the Egyptian Gate up at Loma Land, and now that is the corner of DuPont Street and Catalina Boulevard. This is the one that we used. This image is one of my postcards. We used it in the Point Loma book, and we got to I put that it was from the DuVall collection to make it sound like I had a big postcard collection. There's a lot of postcards of the Egyptian Gate, because it looked so great. So in the old days, before they subdivided the neighborhood, this was merely known as the road to the Greek Theater. And this says, Mama and Papa and all of us kids are going to San Diego today, they say. And this one, they call it the incorrectly the Grecian Gateway, but this was printed by Detroit Photographic Co. Go figure. This is the Roman Gate. This is at what we call Loma Land Drive now. So this was the main entrance to Loma Land. And a lot of these images like this one were ones that they took and produced in-house up on Loma Land. And, Jonnie was telling you, it was another attraction in San Diego in 1915. They were going strong at that point in time. These are a couple of the main buildings at Loma Land. In front, this is the Temple of Peace, and the diamond-shaped building behind it was called the Homestead or the Raja Yoga School. And these kids were called the Little Philosophers. This is one of their in-house cards. This is another one. This is a view from the canyon. These are the main buildings, the buildings with the domes. This is Al Spalding's house, the Homestead building, and the Temple of Peace. And I'll show you the back of this card in just a second. Here's this great shot of the Greek theater. This was very early, this was like 1905 or 1906, when they just put in they call this structure the Doric stoa. The Doric is the type of column used there. That's quite a dramatic sky. You can't quite see it here, but this one's embossed down in the corner. I'll show you one. You can see that a little better. These were the original flower children. Little girls in Loma Land picking flowers. Isn't that a lovely shot? There's a Raja Yoga Orchestra. They actually had 3 different orchestral groups that traveled nationally and internationally, and they really brought a lot of culture to the San Diego region. Here is Point Loma Boulevard, now known as Catalina Boulevard.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. These are all these Canary Island date palms. And as far as I could see, all of these are still pretty healthy going up Catalina. A lot of, around town have succumbed to that beetle, but not these. This is the Raja Yoga College Marching Band. And if you look down in the left-hand corner, I don't know if you can see that, it says copyright KT, Catherine Tingley. So these were actually embossed, probably on a little letterpress, bang, 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 like that. So if you have one of these cards and it's embossed like that, you have a collector's item.
Wow.
And this is what a lot of these cards looked like on the back. It says they were printed by the Aryan Theosophical Press, Point Loma, California, USA. Later, this was known as the Loma Land Printing and Engraving Department, and or Loma Land P&E Department. There's the back of a couple other cards. The one below, this is that view from the canyon. It says Loma Land Photographic Series 1, number 210, copyright Catherine Tingley. This one up here is the Temple of Peace, and I'll show you the Temple of Peace card in just a second. International Theosophical Headquarters, Loma Land Photographic Series number 2285. They produced a lot of images up there in-house of Loma Land. And this is the print shop at Loma Land. So they did all the photography, the production, and the printing on campus at Loma Land. And this was high-tech equipment for 100 years, 110 years ago. It was probably one of the nicest print shops in San Diego at the time. It was really cutting-edge equipment. They produced 3 magazines up here, and then a lot of pamphlets, brochures, and these photographs and postcards. And this is kind of a well-known shot if you've seen postcards of Loma Land. This right up here, this is what we call Loma Land Drive now. And if you drive onto the campus of Point Loma Nazarene and you take the first right, that's this little street that runs horizontally through this picture. I'll show you what this image looks like, the actual photograph. So that was the actual photograph. And then if you'd like to, we'll step back a few paces and get a wider angle. And so this shot shows over here on the right, this is the President's House, also known as the North House. And then this is Spalding's house, Temple of Peace, and the Raja Yoga School. So Spalding's house is still there. The North House is still there. Spalding's house is now known as Mieres Hall on the campus of Point Loma Nazarene. And the North House is now the Alumni Building, and it backs up to Moana Drive. So if you go down Moana, just a driveway, and it doesn't look like it's 110 years old, but it is.
Yeah.
And here's that shot of the Temple of Peace. And we saw the back of this card a little bit ago. And I like to tell people, for some reason, when I was a kid, these 4 steps down here at the bottom were still there. And then this was just a lawn up here where we played touch football. True story.
Hmm.
And here's this great shot of the Greek Theater where Jonnie graduated from high school.
Graduate Point Loma High School.
And here's Jonnie at her friends at a post-graduation event. Here's another shot of the Greek Theater
now
from the 60s. It's like Cal
That's
Western
more like it.
period at the Greek.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show you a couple photos of the Homestead building. I like this one because it's so moody, but also I find it interesting that there's this kind of boggy area down here in the foreground. This was over toward, you know, where Food Basket is now, but there was water up there. Isn't that kind of interesting? Okay, there's a similar vantage point. I like this card. It's weird, but I like this one. And here's the Homestead building up close, formerly known for about a year as the Point Loma House Hotel. And then this is, I'll show you a few of these. And on the San Diego Vintage Postcards page, I call these image encores. And it's just a word. I mean, that's not a real category of anything. But if they had a popular image, a lot of postcard publishers did this. They reused it, they colorized it differently. In this case, this is both produced at Loma Land. This is Loma Land Photographic Series number 205. In each case, they produced it in sepia, and then later they colorized it. So that's probably a very early hand-tinted card. And here are my little girls jumping rope. And the athletic fields of Loma Land were just up above where Sunset View School is nowadays. And when I see photos like this, wouldn't it have been great to live out there in those days? Holy moly. All right. All right, Jonnie.
There's Wonderland, as we know. I've told you it was opened in 1913, July 4th. It was a big deal, the first amusement park in San Diego. Unfortunately, the timing was not right. And we know that a year and a half later, expo opened in Balboa Park. And, you know, tourists are so fickle. They want to go see the new thing. So we'll hear a little bit more about that later. Let's move along. Here it is at night. There were 22,000 lights on this that lit up at night. So it's probably quite spectacular for a little beach kid to be out there and see that. And some more night shots coming up too, I believe. Yeah. There's a ballroom. I think they had room for like 800 people to dance in that ballroom at one time.
Look at that crowd out there.
Yeah, these are the buildings that would have been built on the pilings that went down into bedrock. So that was one of the bigger ones. All right, let's move around to the next one. Yep, there's some more lights. The casino wasn't really a casino. Actually, if you look it up, a casino was a place for social gatherings. And in this case, that's what it was for. But there was no gambling going on there, unfortunately. But it sure was pretty at night. And a lot of you probably know this story about how the Wonderland was known for its large menagerie. They had hundreds of monkeys. They had lions and tigers and bears, and they had birds, and they had lots of interesting animals. And when it went bankrupt, these animals were taken to the expo and put in cages along Park Boulevard so that they could still be cared for and seen by visitors. And then eventually when the expo closed at the end of 1916, these became the first animals of the San Diego Zoo. We're going to have a shot of this lion. We're wondering if it's the same one you'll see later, but we want to think it is.
Well, we'll show you.
When we get to the zoo. Oh, here's one of the second most popular ride after the roller coaster was this one called the Chutes, where you came down on a flat bottom boat down these rails and landed in the water. There were like 40 major attractions at Wonderland, so it was just a real shame that it went under. A lot of the roller coaster was salvaged and sent up to, I think it was up to Long Beach, and some of these other things were used other places, but they were so unique for their time. It's at least we have that year and a half of history.
Yep.
Yep. All right, there you go. That's one of Eric's garish ones. So you take it over, Eric.
This is one of the oldest ones I have, actually. Well, I don't know. I bought quite a few Sunset Cliffs cards a long time ago, and this is a wild one. So these hand tinted cards, four color process lithography developed well in advance of color photography. So you could print in color, but people were still only taking black and white photographs. So they would get artists to hand tint these, and frequently the artist had no familiarity with the subject matter. So they did their best, but sometimes it looked pretty wild. They say, well, it's a very colorful scene. And they say, okay, take it away. All right. These are mostly of Al Spalding's Sunset Cliffs Park. Some people call it Spalding Park. Some people call it Sunset Cliffs Park, but he called it the Albert G. Spalding Esplanade. And Spalding was the sporting goods magnate. He pretty much invented the sporting goods industry. He was a great pitcher in the turn of the 20th century. He was the Max Scherzer of his time. Great. So there were at least two of these bridges out there. And he developed Sunset Cliffs Park to open simultaneously at the same time as the Panama California Exposition. So a lot of this stuff was going on about 1950. And we'll get a closer. They call this a rocky point. There's when I was a kid, we called that turd rock. This bird shit rock thing is a new phenomenon. Okay, get a little closer. So this, you can see the stairway coming down this path, and then these stairs went down to the beach here. And when I was a kid, these stairs were still there, except they had fallen away from the cliff. They were just lying down here in the rock. Now I'm sure they're still there. They just got covered with riprap and so forth. This is like Osprey Point. And this is looking the other way. This is the one card that I ripped off from the Feline collection. Here's Turd Rock. Look how pristine the beaches are. It's the plateau. There's no surf over there. And nothing on top of the cliff until you get way up on top of the hill. And there's Loma Land. That a great card?
Oh, yeah, that's a good.
And here's my my old Needle's Eye card. And this one says on the back, the restless sea carves weird and fantastic formations into the rocks of Sunset Cliffs. How about that? Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
I was still there when I was a little kid. Then it fell in like 60 or 61, I think. And this is Cleopatra's Needle, not to be confused. Some people think it was the same thing. It was nothing of the kind. And this is when Dr. Freud was out there that time, I like to say, at Cleopatra's Needle. This was up by Crawfish Cove, of course. Okay. Don't jump, buddy. Don't do it. Here's this nice one. This is a beautiful one and very nicely colored. I call this the Bridge of Sunset Cliffs. Isn't that nice? All right. They call this one the Bridge of Sighs. And I don't know exactly where this one was, but this is beautifully hand colored. And I say that because this one is not so great. I mean, look at this one. Isn't that wild?
It's awful.
Exciting anyway, right? All right. And then here is the Devil's Pot, they call this one. And then here are a few real photo cards of Sunset Cliff. There's another one of Sunset Cliffs Park. You know, this place, there's a parking lot here now, but this was actually a cigar lounge at the time. There's a couple old guys in there lounging around smoking cigars. See that? And see these rocks down here on the north side of this bridge? You can still find those. Those are still there. It's one of the remnants of Al Spalding's Sunset Cliffs Park. There's Spalding's pool. Nobody knows where that is except Kitty. And because it's a secret. Still there. The Great Sunset Cliffs shot.
Don't forget to tell the story about the Sea Trader liquor store or whatever. Those photos.
Well, I will. I'm coming to that, Johnny.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
In
thought you
fact, I
were
was about-
running
No,
out.
I don't know if this is interesting or not, but when I was a kid, I grew up on Devonshire Drive. So right, not very far from here. I never heard of this park. And there was really nothing left of it to speak of. And if we went to the store, we went to Al's Market. That's where my mom sent me for, eggs or milk or something on Point Loma Avenue. I never really went in L&M Liquor. And that's what the liquor store was across the street that is now known as Sea Trader. But one time coming back from Ocean Beach, I went in there to get like a squirt or something, and going out the door, above the door, it was still in the same place. There were 3 photos. I think this is one of them of Al Spalding's Sunset Cliffs Park. And I asked the clerk there, I said, where was this? I was like 11. He said, it's right down here. I said, well, when was that? He said, oh, a long time ago. I said, what happened to it? He said, I don't know, like, get out of here, kid. And I thought, wow, but that was the first I ever heard of it. And I grew up there. So anyway, all right. Hey, did anybody else used to call these giant kelp bubbles Martians? We did.
No.
How about Santa Claus Cave? I never heard of this place, but I love this card, and it's beautifully colored, I think. And what else do we have? Oh, we're going to talk briefly about real photo cards. This is for you, Jeff Isles. There you go.
Yeah.
Benel Photoshop. There's a Spanish Village real photo card. This one says that this is a Del Mar drugstore postcard. This is the beach homes in Del Mar. So what a real photo card was, and this shows you front and back. This was from 1935, the House of Pacific Relations. You could print a photograph on a postcard size cardstock weight piece of photographic paper, and they just printed them right on there. And then you had a rubber stamp, and you stamp the back of the card, and these either said postcard, had a generic stamp. You could put your own stamp, or some say real photo card. And so that is what those were. These are typically like 3 1/4 by 5 1/2 nominally. And some of them were produced, by the hundreds. This is also Benel Photoshop, but people, individuals could produce these too. And here's this great card, and this is the one that I swiped from San Diego Vintage Postcards page. Purnell found this one of the Pelican Inn in OB. Isn't that a great card? This was down on Abbott Street and West Point Loma. Anyway, but this one is probably the individual took this card of his wife and his aunt and sent it back to Uncle Charlie in Poughkeepsie or something, and said at Ocean Beach near San Diego. So anybody could, make 1 or 2 of these. So a lot of these images, if you find them in a box, they may be, kind of a one-off real photo picture postcard. I know a lot of you folks are going to have a similar experience that I had, and that is that I inherited a lot of boxes full of stuff that my parents had been storing for years. And in one of those boxes, I didn't know what to do with this stuff. And anyway, I still don't, if you must know. But in one of these boxes, I found this. And it was a box of stuff. Antique postcard size Kodak belonged to Grandpa Clyde. That is my grandfather, my dad's dad. This is the camera. It came in this beautiful leather case. I don't know if you can see this. It says EKC, Eastman Kodak Company. This is what the camera looks like. This is the back of it. I popped it open. It looks like this. It expands. That's the camera. It's a beautiful thing. And came with little printing frames. These are negs. It said 1900 to 1935, mostly postcard size. And here was a little film tank. It was a little kit. You could make your own postcards. I've been making postcards for 40 years. I didn't know till about a year and a half, 2 years ago, that my grandfather made postcards. Here's this film tank. Here's a little instruction book that came with it. Kind of showed you how to use it and so forth. These are all these negatives are in, I mean, hundreds of negs, and one print. Here's the one print. It was this priest. I don't know who he was. So I show you the that print with the back of the camera open to get across the point that this was the size of that film. It was called 122 is what that film was called, and there were 6 exposures typically to a roll, sometimes up to 10. They made them 10 exposures later, but the point is that no enlargers were needed. So these photographers were just making contact prints, 100% size. So that's how a regular person could make these postcards. I got to thinking, and the light came on, and so I realized that this photograph, which is my dad and a Navy buddy and a high school friend, on Thanksgiving 1941, which happened to be November 27th, 1941. These guys must have been home on a 3-day pass. Here's my grandmother on the left side of this photo, in a photo being taken by my grandfather with that postcard camera. And this was just in a box of photos. But anyway, so these guys probably took the bus to Los Angeles, and maybe he picked them up. I don't know. But so they were all smiles at this time. 10 days later, Pearl Harbor was bombed, and these guys were in the soup at that point. Hey, if you use Kodak dry mounting tissues, you just need the tissue and a flat iron. And here's the flat iron building being buffeted. That's the last of the real photo cards. All right, Jonnie.
All right. Well, I have hundreds and hundreds of Balboa Park, and you're going to see that I have a lot of certain buildings. So let's start with Botanical Building, I believe, is coming up here. Oh, before we get into that, yeah, this is the official seal for the expo, Panama, California Exposition. And this, like I say, this was the golden era in San Diego, because if you look at cards between 1913, 1915, they're all, a lot of them will have this little official decal showing that they're part of the expo. All right, here we have a picture of the Botanical Garden. By the way, the Botanical Garden building was one of 3 buildings that was meant to stay. The others were the Oregon Pavilion and California Tower and the Complex Museum of Man. So you're going to see a lot of them. And of course, it had many uses during the war. It was used by servicemen, but always has the lily pads on it. Every picture I have has lily pads. So we could go on for a long time, but
how's that for a gorgeous card? That's a beautiful card right there.
That one is a beautiful card. Send it from every angle. I think for half, there we go. Yep. And there's a little decal. It says in fine print that is copyrighted by the expo committee. So this was something you could probably put on your postcard showing it was an official one. This is by George Rice and Sons. We have some more. This one is by a San Diego company called Eno and Madison, and they did an awful lot of postcards at this time. This is not the official logo, but it looks good. There's a plane going over, and Eric's going to have fun with planes in a little bit, so we won't talk too much about that. But this is going to show you and several photographs that show there was a lagoon going under the bridge. You'll see it in this one here. This is a real photo. And that road there is probably what became 163, because as we all know, 163 was eventually built along that same path. Have a lot of the bridge from every angle. There's a California building with the tower. And they called it the Tower of Science during the 1935 Expo. I am not sure exactly why that happened, but another one, Tower of Jewels at night.
It's a Hertz card. This guy was also a San Diego publisher. I think this one will make a good Christmas card, I told Johnny.
There you go. Yep. This is El Cid, by the way. This was sculpted by a woman named Anna Hyatt Huntington. And this was put up in 1930 in the park. So it was kind of in between the two expos. There are about 5 other exact replicas of this. In fact, the original one is in New York. So it's not the only copy of El Cid, but hey, we like it.
We like it.
We like it. There's another view. And back to the lily pads. That's a real photo. More, it's a longer view. Okay, I'm tired of the botanical building. There we go. This is actually back behind what's the Natural History Museum, and somewhere in that area was where that Merton Bay fig
Wait,
was.
sorry, that
planted.
one? Yeah.
We didn't, I'm not sure exactly where, but this would be where the big fig tree is now. Right
Yeah.
behind the building. Yep. There's the roller coaster at the fun zone. And here's Golden Hill Park, which was the part of the park that was developed first for recreational use. It was like the first area way back when. Firehouse. I don't know about that. I'll have to find out more about what the firehouse. But here's another garden. Now Zuma's garden. And now we have another bunch of organ pavilion. I don't think we have that many in here, but I have so many views of the organ pavilion, every angle. It's so pretty. It really deserved to be, photographed. And look at the crowds it drew.
Yeah.
Look at the people, and always something. Every day of the expo, there was some, whole day's array of programs. Some of it was musical, some of it was speeches, and some of it was, just other types of entertainment, but it was very well used building. And there you have one of the electric cats. That little vehicle was an electric cart that was made out of wicker, the official way to get around the grounds. I think it cost a few dollars for the day.
On these next few cards, I would like to call your attention to these skies that they like to put in on these cards. So this is probably not the actual sky that day.
Probably not. This was the fun zone. You can see the Ferris wheel over there. That was relatively a new attraction because the original one was built for the World's Fair in Chicago in 1893. So we're just 20 some years later. So it was quite an attraction. Roller coaster isn't on this view.
The lighthouse was, excuse me, the lighthouse was, did you see that? It was a
That was-
full-scale lighthouse.
Right, that was for part of the Panama thing. I think it was with the
Yeah.
Panama of it. Yep.
Yeah, there it is.
There it was.
Very good.
That is. This is, I like to tell people about the War of the Worlds because it was, if you can imagine 1915, what would be the most far-fetched thing, dramatic, sensational that you could think of? And this guy came up with this idea of what would war be like in the year 2000. I mean, that's a long way off. Okay, they have all these kinds of lights and flashes and stuff. And the far-fetched part was that he decided that it was going to be nations that weren't formed yet, that they were going to be nations from Africa and from Asia that were going to attack New York. And somewhere along the line, intergalactic stuff happened too. But he thought it was so so far-fetched. He said he picked African and Asian nations because there weren't any now. If he picked civilized nations attacking like Italy or Germany, he might get in trouble. So he just said, they did it. And how are you going to know what's going to happen in 85 years? No one's going to be around to find out. Oh, the pigeons. Pigeons were really popular. You know, I read something, I'm a docent at Marston House, and I saw something recently about, oh, these pigeons might have started with a gift to George Marston from some guy that had lots of pigeons, and he didn't want to sell them because he couldn't get a good enough price. And he said, I'll give them to you for that park you're thinking of doing. So he might have one, he might have been the one that got that whole thing started. I don't know. There's no real proof. But we know they really had a lot of them, that's for sure. The military was in the park from the get-go, and this, Eric said this one was 1917, but they had like a Marine contingent there during the expo, and then afterwards they used it, you know, for their training ground for World War I, and eventually in World War II they took over the park again. So it has a lot of military history also. This one Eric put in because it was one of those fold out things that had like 20 different views in one little package. Cost 15 cents, and we like the stamp. It's got a commemorative stamp of the expo.
Very nice.
It
From
cost,
1935.
yeah, that was 3 cents for this big package, whereas a regular postcard was only a penny. And here is the California State Building. I was wondering when I was looking at this, do you think that's where the Automotive Museum is? Because those murals are, they just redid some murals down there. And they
Yeah.
kind of,
It is.
That's it.
that's it, huh? Okay.
Yeah, this guy Sirigo was the official photographer in 1935.
Johnny, they were recently looking for those they needed photographs because
Oh, and I remember hearing that too, and they've already done them now, so I guess they got pretty close.
I don't know why they didn't call Johnny. Jeez.
Yeah, why didn't you call me? I could have
They
told you.
called me and I put word out to OB and to La Playa Trail. So anyway, sorry.
This is the Ford Bowl. It was right near the Ford building that was on that Palisades end of the park. And during the expos, they used it for musical. This is the 35 expo, by the way.
Yeah.
And Ford building had this huge building that had trails around below it where you could get into, you know, new cars and take a little ride down these roads. And they threw in the bowl as a venue, which later became the, you know, Starlight Opera Bowl. But there's the building, and that is now the Aerospace Museum. The Painted Desert was really interesting because that was done by the Santa Fe Railroad, and they brought in American Indians from New Mexico to build this so it would look authentic, and then of course encourage them to stay there as a tourist attraction. And that later became a training ground for the Boy Scouts. They used it after it was abandoned for the park. Boy Scouts got to use that. These postcards, there's a whole series with gold trim around them. This particular one is the 35 exposition, and it's Gold Gulch, which was one of the, you know, entertainments. You go down there and it'd be all like the Wild West. But there's a better one coming up. There's the official logo of the second exposition. And here we have the Old Globe Theater, which was a new building for the second exposition. It wasn't there in the earlier expo. And the Palisades Cafe, that got torn down, but that was down in that end of the park too. So that's kind of nice architecture, I like it. Ah, here's the most popular one, Zero Gardens, where the nudists were, which is now a butterfly garden, which isn't quite as entertaining, I guess. There we have the California Tower at night, the reflection in probably the lily pond.
There's our lion from Wonderland.
Yeah, we want those. We think those should be the ones that mother had her cubs. Anyway, so I have actually there's going to be a bunch on the zoo, but I wanted to read this one back of a card that I saw. It was written to someone in New York, and it said, "You should see this zoo. It's really something, and we have seen them from here to New York." So I guess they really liked it.
Yeah.
So let's move on.
That's a great card. All right.
Here's what it looked like when I was a kid. Kids got in free. You didn't ever pay. You just went down there. If you're under 16, you could go anytime. That's the same building a few years later. A lot different than the entrance today. a bunch of them that had these multiple animal cards. I think we got a couple of them in here.
And so they reused this, the lion and the cubs.
Yeah,
And
grizzly
then
bear.
we'll see the three bears here. That's an old image that they reused a few times.
Yeah, couple of zebras. Do you know the difference between Chapman zebra and a different one? I don't know.
I don't.
There's a polar bears. I think they have a better enclosure nowadays with that nice pool. But, and this is a cage that was donated by Ellen Browning Scripps. It was the largest cage in the world at the time. She donated the money for it in 1923. It's still there. Major aviary. There's the old bus. Probably some of you might remember being on that one. More. This is Eric and I think this is one of the gorillas that's been in memorialized in bronze up there at the entrance. There's this bus up there. One of the early ones obtained for the zoo back in the 30s, I think it was. Here are the grizzlies.
There's the three bears again.
Yep.
All right. We're coming down the home stretch, folks. You've been very patient with us.
Woo!
So
Yep.
this is our things that we couldn't fit in anywhere else, and some of our kind of weird and funny cards. For example, remember that time that the sun set in the east over the bay that one day? And neither do I.
Oh,
Hey, this was a mural inside the Hillcrest Bowl. Anybody else remember that? Isn't that cool?
that is so
We got the postcard.
Yep.
Here's old Ted Williams at Lane Field. There's a lot of photos at Lane Field, but this one's a postcard with hometown boy made good Ted Williams. Played for the Padres as a teenager. He did.
Yep.
I love this this black swan card. They talk about black swan events. Here's 5 of them. How rare could it be? Come on.
Pretty good.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Oh, this one I like to tell a story about now. Eric and Kitty were talking about how they moved the statue of Sarah, but the cross is still there. And I had just run across an article right about the time we went to that on that tour of the Presidio Hill. And the article I read talked about how Collier, our guy, founding father of OB, he was in charge of putting a road through there, and he had they were dynamiting away the side of the hill so they could widen the road. And when they blew it up, all these tiles came flying up. He said, we should do something like that. And it was his idea to make the cross. So they gathered up all these tiles, and in 1913, they put the cross up. This is long before Marston, started beautifying the park, building well, he might have bought the land by then, but anyway, the Order of Panama was one of his organizations, Collier's, and the Order of Panama was a group of business and professional men that were there to, their sole goal was to promote the San Diego Expo in 1915. So they had a lot of events like this. They did things to attract attention. Oh yeah, this is Winifred Davidson's poem. Eric wanted me to read it because we just had that program by Winifred Davidson, who was one of our early historians. So she's, greetings from San Diego. It is a summer city, and all days blow blue on white, bloom silver green on gold. Here rain is kind, here the harsh cry of cold comes gentle by the sun. And quiet ways of wind and weather are but song and praise and tales to tell. These scarlet roses hold stored memories of Spanish girls of old, who here once danced, sweet cheeks and lips ablaze. How shines the harbor, now swift traffic shines, leaving the water's rim, streets find flowered crests of eastern hills, where towers where palms and pines wait leisurely on beauty. So famed guests long linger here in calm expectancy of summer dreams beside this summer sea. Wow, that was the poetry of the day. Not quite the style now, but it was good. Okay,
Thank
now
you. Thank you, Johnny. So I just wanted to show you a couple more of these shots, how they would take a same image and reproduce it some years later, colorized differently. And these are both called the corner of the Botanical Building, but the top one is from about 1936. The bottom one is from 5 to 10 years later. You notice they don't call it America's Exposition. They just say Balboa Park in San Diego. And on the bottom one, they don't mention the food and beverage building there. And then here's another one that's kind of funny. A lot of times they would like to introduce these boats into seascapes that weren't really there. And so in this one, at the end of the point, they put this nice 3-masted schooner and the ubiquitous smoking freighter, and they turn this little fishing boat into a smoking freighter. And here in this later card, it looks like this schooner has foundered on the rocks here. Neither of those were really in the photo, but this fishing boat probably was actually in this photo. All right. And this is just a Sunset Cliffs card, but they had a little bit of horizon there, so they thought they'd put in the smoking freighter. Doesn't that make that card look better? All right. Here's another shot of the Devil's Pot with smoking freighter. This one I call smoking freighter overload at the.
God.
And then here are a couple. Johnny and I like these biplane shots, so they thought they'd throw a biplane into this one. And here's this guy buzzing Collier's shack up here on the cliff. And here's another one that says these folks are going to sea on the Turtle, and they're getting buzzed by a biplane here. Well, there wasn't really a biplane there, but they put. Doesn't that look kind of like a sea turtle? I don't know where the turtle was though.
Nope.
And I don't think these are PBYs, but boy, these guys are coming pretty close to Convoy down there Convair on Pacific Highway. Wow.
Oh, God.
And this one, look at a squadron of fighters is
Oh.
heading directly for the El Cortez. What do you make of that? Holy moly.
Holy moly.
Okay. And here is a lovely hand-tinted card of Fort Rosecrans. It's really super well done. And however, they decided to introduce a cartoon car
Roger Rabbit.
into this one. Yeah. And if that's not enough for you, how about half a dozen cartoon cars in the Plaza de Panama? Isn't that funny? And then we're gonna look the other way in this series in the plaza. Look at these stylish folk here, dressed to the nines. I'm sure they were out there. That they're straw boaters and all that. Okay. Now, a lot of you didn't know that Johnny was a champion wakeboarder in the 60s. A lot of you didn't know that, did you? You're San Diego's first citizen. Here in 1913 BC, still here in 1913 AD, still here in 2021. Just ask Rupert the cat. Okay. Or Baby Little. And here's a Merry Christmas from San Diego with a few naval vessels. And a Happy New Year from Ocean Beach. I love these two little kids and this character over here on the left. Now, what does this guy say on this costume? Does that say OB? Don't you want that thing? Isn't that cool? All right. And last but not least, the second building erected on Mount Laguna. And that brings us to the end of our program. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
That was fun.
All right. And
Eric,
Johnny will take questions if you have any. But we appreciate your kind attention. I don't know if that ran kind of long, but
it's okay. So good. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah.
Well, part two. We'll have part two one of these days.
We could have part two sometime.
I mean, it's over an hour and 15 minutes. We did have to cut it,
Yeah.
I know that. It's fun though.
Yeah.
Was that not the Great White Fleet in that one photo you were laughing about all the smoking
Raiders
background? Could that have been the Great White Fleet coming in? We don't know the date of that.
Smoke settlement with a big gray fleet.
Yeah, I
Been
think
great.
those were
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
poorly,
said that?
poorly illustrated ships in that one.
Yeah,
The great white privilege fleet.
Yeah.
really.
It was fantastic and it was a lot of work
Thanks, Kitty.
and so many pictures I had never seen.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that was over 200 images. You know, they say if you make a PowerPoint, you should stick to like 15 images. But I tell people that's if you don't have any material. We have a lot of material.
That's why it's so good. You two made it lots of fun.
Oh, well, thank you, Karen. Very kind of you. All right. Well, if there are no further questions.
I've got a question. I've got a
Yeah,
question.
go ahead, Mark.
I'm planning on writing a book dealing with an aspect of San Diego history, and it's going to incorporate a lot of postcard images from my own collection, et cetera. And I'm wondering how you deal with copyright issues. The images I'm going to be using will date from about 1908 up to
They're all
maybe
out
the 70s or 80s. What do you, have they all lapsed, or is it considered in the public domain?
It is in the
Or,
public
or
domain,
what?
Yeah,
Well,
those images are in the public domain for sure. You're fine.
Up to about 20, you can look it up. It's something like 1924 and earlier, but the ones that you're talking about, if you want to do more recent ones, I think you'd have to check the company.
You should be fine, though. That's one of the great things about postcards. The History Center does not own them. Anybody could have a postcard. So, yeah.
We,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Jack.
I just want to say, being vintage at 85, born in 36, I just want to just say my mother and father apparently met about 1935 at that, well, it's a parking lot now at a dance hall. I think you called it a bathhouse at the end of Newport Beach.
oh yeah, Benbow's.
Yeah,
Benbow's.
they met there. And when my father went where the silver spray plunge, well, when my father was a kid, his job was to dive down into the saltwater pool, swimming pool that was there to get the kelp out of the pipe there where the water went into the swimming pool.
Oh yeah.
And my uncle was a fireman in that fire station on Newport, and I can remember going over there and watching him slide down the pole.
Wow.
And I think my father went to Ocean Beach Elementary, what you showed, which on that corner.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, that's about all I want. Oh, I went to Homer's.
Yeah, me too.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Me too.
And
I love
and
them.
my father was friends with Jonnie, Johnny's mother. And
Yeah.
I think you said earlier that the pastor of, well, the Methodist Church has a different name now. Where you have your meetings, the Methodist Church on Newport.
Oh,
She-
yeah.
It's called Water's Edge now.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is she went, she went, I know her, I know her, and I know her husband, and I went to her wedding, and she's from Yucaipa, and her husband to be lived in my house for a while until they got married, but she grew up in Yucaipa where I'm from.
I'll be darned.
Jessica, yeah. That's all.
That's a great connection. That's very cool. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, my sister.
Thank you very much. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Hey, thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
my sister is asking, how many Point Loma Lighthouse cards might you have?
Johnny,
I don't know. I think we put most of them in there.
Bunches.
we have a lot, 20, maybe 25, maybe more. I didn't put all of them in. We've got more.
Okay.
Okay. He knows
Yeah.
more than I do.
I can show you maybe 3 to 4 versions of one card. There's several versions of that bicycle card, the one we used for the Point Loma cover photo. There's quite a few of them actually. So
We'll look at that sometime.
yeah,
Thank you.
sure,
Johnny?
absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Well, without any further to do, I will adjourn class. So
Hey,
thank you, folks, very kind.
thank you.
Have a great evening. Catch you next month. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, Eric and Johnny. It was great. Thank you.